Well, you know, I've always wanted one of these big old D8 cats, and this is no exception to the big side. And this is an old unit, cable operated, and well, they kind of take up some real estate. So I guess the next best thing to owning one's working on one. I got this one here, farmer down the road's got it, and supposedly it ran about 15 years ago. And then they parked it where you see it sitting. Hasn't run since. So I was contacted to see if I wanted to come over and try to get it going again. So that's a journey we're going to go on today. So like I said, my knowledge is pretty limited on one of these things. I do know that's a pony motor. And you throw all them levers in some order to get the big motor spinning over, and then I think that's the decompression lever right there, and you throw it up and magic happens and your exhaust starts belching out white smoke and eventually takes off and runs. But yeah, guess what? We're going to learn together, because all them levers right there, yeah, I don't know any of them do. I'm assuming those are the brakes. I don't know what them are. I don't know what that is. I know those up there operate the winch that operates the blade. But outside of that, yeah, I don't know. Wonder what's in here. Probably bees. Come on. Come on. Alright, I guess we're not looking in there. So anyway, I guess we'll get started and get working on this pony motor. Probably should see if it's got spark, and then go from there. So I got one of these little sparky things for the spark plugs to see if they're firing, or see if the mag's firing. So I'm going to put this in line, then hit the crank up there, see if this thing will actually have some spark to it. If not, I guess we know we need to start with the mag. Oh, we'll try not to fall off this thing. Ain't going to fit there, I don't think. Well, that's handy. The spark plug's loose. Don't look bad though. Looks clean. Smells like varnish. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess we should see it actually turns over first. Well, I'll put this on and we'll do that. Alright. Not getting anything. Why is that? I wonder if a switch that says off might have something to do with it. Right there. So this might have something to do with it. Let's see if it turns. Hey, yes she does. She's on now. Let's see if she'll spark now. Right here we should see this light up if this thing's got any spark. Well, I'm going to say no. I think the horse finds this funny. No spark, so I'm going to pull the cap off the mag, I think. Points are probably clogged up on it, or fuzzed up. And I guess we'll pull the plugs out and put some penetrating oil down in there. It only feels like it's got compression on one cylinder too. So, yeah, I guess that's the next step. Both these plugs are finger tight. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Neither of them look bad though. Yep, didn't need that one. Well, time to go fishing for the spark plug. So I'm here working on trying to get the cap off the end of the mag, and I had to take this voltage regulator or whatever this is off to get back into that back screw there. And well, lo and behold, I don't have a screwdriver that'll work. I broke the tip off of that one, which that one was too small anyway. So I was getting ready to leave and go back to the house to get a screwdriver, and I kind of got to thinking, well, we never opened this toolbox. I wonder what's in there. Maybe a screwdriver? I don't know. So I already got in here, and see if I can get back in this thing now. There we go. Move this can, and what do I see? Oh, look, a screwdriver. I guess this was meant to be. I was a poet and didn't even know it. So, knocked the rest of this mud dauber off, and that's a big enough blade to pop that off. Back in business. Well, that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. Let's see how many of these will break off. I think we're going to apply some heat. Well, we're 2 for 2 for breaking the bolts off. So I'm going to guess the rest of these are going to break off. I even put heat on them. Still breaking. That's what happens when you have two dissimilar metals, like this pot metal case or aluminum, whatever this is, and this steel. I don't know if it's electrolysis or what it is. But yeah, probably going to fight this so I can at least get the cap off. But I'll probably have to pull the mag off, take it home, and drill all these out, rethread everything so I can get the cap back on. But at least we'll know what the inside of the mag looks like. Got the cap off. She's a little fuzzy on the inside, so definitely ain't going to hurt to take this home and clean it up and drill all these out on the mill or the drill press or whatever, and get this thing working again. So that sucks, but part of the game. For those of you screaming at me right now, yeah, I may have got a little gung-ho on the spark issue. I should have checked the spark plug wires first, made sure that they were all right before really tearing it into the mag. But you know what? It probably needed done anyway. That's the theory I'm going to go with. And yeah, obviously this probably wasn't helping the situation either. But hey, well, at least we'll know we'll have a good working mag we can throw back on there. And then I'm sure I'll have to pull that thing apart and tear the carburetor down and get it going again. But yeah, it's part of working on old junk. Well, I went through and cleaned the mag up on it, and I got 3 of the 4 bolts drilled out. I broke a bit off on that one, so I ain't gonna mess with it too much more. But got the mag back on, and I cranked it over a couple times, wasn't getting any spark at the spark plug. So I got my test light coming right out of the mag, grounded to what I hope is a good ground. And I guess we're going to at least see if the mag's hot, and then probably going to have to end up getting spark plug wires. If the mag's hot, they're probably you know, junk from sitting. So one step at a time, I guess. Very nice. Well, we got spark at the mag now, so we know we're good on the mag. I wasn't getting anything at the spark plug, so I'm going to assume the spark plug wires are junk. So I'm going to end up getting some new wires for this thing, probably get a couple new plugs, get that wired in, and make sure we got spark up there, and then I'll tear into that carburetor after this. Well, it's been a couple of days, and I got some stuff to make some spark plug wires from the Brillman company. So get that taken care of, and see if we can get this thing to fire on maybe some brake cleaner or something, and then, like I said, probably have to tear into that carb. So plug wires are on. They have spark, the spark plug spark. So I'm going to shoot some of this brake cleaner down into the holes and see if I get this thing to go pop. I don't know if I got the plug wires on the right plugs, so I may have to swap them to make sure, trial and error, I guess. But I'm going to take the breather off, shoot some of this down in there, or I might pull a spark plug out and do that, and we'll go from there. See ya. Oh yeah, that thing's full of mud daubers. Probably no air getting through that. If it don't fire on that, I don't know what will. Alright, so we got spark but no fire. I took the mag off and put it back on the same way that I took it off. I assume it's in time, but I'm going to get on the internet, figure out how to time this thing, and check, make sure this is all in time, and revisit this. In the meantime, I think I'm going to pull this carburetor off and take it home with me. Try to clean it up on the inside. I'm sure there's crap inside, especially if this thing's full of mud daubers. So get that thing cleaned up and figure out making sure the timing on the mag's right. And we'll revisit this another day. Well, you don't know this, but it's been about a month since I've worked on this thing, and I think where we left off at was had spark but no fire, just trying to use starting fluid. So I determined I was going to need to do the timing on it, and I got on the old Googleator and found out how to time this thing, which involves taking this cover off here and spinning it over and taking the mag off and getting it in time and putting it all together. So yeah, that's what I'm going to get into tonight. As you can tell, it's evening, so I don't have much time to work on this thing, but I'll at least maybe get that done and get it firing where it should be. So pull this cover off, pull the mag off, and when I get into that, I'll show you the timing marks and whatnot. And I'm sure people out there that know how to work on this thing are screaming at me and calling me an idiot, but hey, I don't know what I'm doing, so deal with it. You can see right there's a flywheel, and there should be timing marks on this thing if I spin it over. These little fingers in there are the clutch, and it appears to be working. At least it's doing something there, I guess. looks like it's engaging and disengaging, so that's a good thing. I'm not sure what this one is. But yeah, spin her over and see what we do. See if we can see anything. Probably wouldn't hurt to take the spark plugs out. Spin her over a little easier. Focus. Hey, right there it says mag. There should be a mark here on the case somewhere. I'll line them two up. That has it where it should be impulsing. If I remember right, what it said is 28 degrees before top dead center. That 28 takes up for the, I think, the impulse on that mag, so it'll fire where it needs to fire. So we got that where we need it. Now we just need to pull the mag off and make sure it's in time correctly. So here's what I'm looking for. We got mag. I'm going to pull that gasket off that's on there and see if we can find our mark and line them two up, and then we'll go to the other page here. Then we get to into checking the mag, doing the steps in here, and that's a good thing anyway, even if it is in time, because I never reset the points on this. So in the process of setting the timing on the mag, we can get the points reset too, or well, reset to where they need to be. So it's worth it. Hey. Looks like our mark's right there, and I got that thing pretty darn close to where it needs to be. Looks like she's right on the money there. Something I forgot to mention is you got to make sure you're coming up on your compression stroke on #1 cylinder to do your timing on this, which after I turned the camera off, I went back and checked it and it was off. I'd been 180 out on my timing if I'd timed it where I showed you. So I got it cranked around where it should be. So I'm going to pull the mag off now and give this thing a try. So if we're comparing by the drawing, assuming the drawing's right, if you look where the contactor is here compared to the contactor there, looks like we're off. And the back of it obviously is it's not where it should be. So I'm going to adjust this thing to what it should be and throw it back on, and if all is correct, it'll run. Alright, so it said something about lining the red mark up, which that looks like it's got red paint on it with this mark here. So we're going to line them up. Yeah. That kind of looks like the drawing. Yeah. I'm going to call that good. So here's where we're at. I'm still getting fire when the spark plug's laying on top of the cylinder, but it's not firing when it's under compression. So I brought it home, I charged the magnet here again, and brought it back, stuck it back on, made like 3 trips back and forth, trying to get this thing to fire under compression. Still couldn't get it. Filed the points a bunch of times, they're making good contact. Everything seems to be in time as far as the timing on the Magneto itself, and then the mag was timed to the engine. I checked that like 3 or 4 times, so I'm fairly certain that I got an issue with the coil here. So I ended up getting a new coil. And in the process of taking this rotor button off, I broke it, so I ended up having to get a new rotor button, so we've thrown that on there too. So hopefully this new coil fixes the issue with firing under compression. And I'm no expert on these low tension. I'm no expert on these impulse mags, a little bit newer than what I'm used to, a little more fancy. I'm more used to like the stuff in the 20s and teens. like it's Wyco EK, and there's a Webster ignition system and some rotary stuff. That's what I'm used to. So I did have to do a little bit of research and found a service manual for this, so I get the readings on this coil and see if it was inside the readings that it should have been, which this did not ohm out to what it should have. So that's why I went with getting a new coil. And I did kind of assume with this being an impulse, I'd have to time the mag itself to this, which that's what that A there is for. That's a timing mark, and then you line your keyway up, I believe, with the A, and then that gets your magnets in line with where this thing needs to be when it spins and trips on the impulse to make your spark. So I'm going to throw this thing back together, and fingers crossed that this new coil is going to fix my issue. So I was sitting at home editing the video, and I realized that I'd probably get questions on, Chase, how did you know this thing wasn't firing under compression? Well, let me tell you. So I take this, which has a little light bulb in it, and put it in line with the spark plug wire and spark plug. So this thing would be sitting on the spark plug, like so, hooked up, and it will fire through this. And when it fires, the little light bulb in here will light up along with it sparking in the cylinder. If this thing isn't firing under compression, and with this thing in line, the circuit's not being completed, the spark gap, the spark's not jumping inside the cylinder, this light bulb's not lighting up. So what I ran into is screwing around with that mag, having this thing on there. Every time I crank it over, I was not getting any illumination out of this. So that meant there was nothing going on inside of the head, and that's how I determined that this thing was not firing under compression. It'd fire in atmosphere, just out in the open air, on the spark plugs just fine. But once it got a little bit of compression over there, that mag or that coil in the mag was weak enough that it wouldn't jump the spark gap inside the cylinder. So, there. Now you know. That's how I figured it out, using this little handy device. Well, it's back together. I must have done something right because, well, it still sparks. I spun it over and I got fire on both of these like I should, so hopefully the camera will catch it, and I'll give you a little demonstration, but we won't really know until we put it back on the tractor and see if it'll fire. So if you noticed, that one fired and that one fired, and how this thing operates, it fires at the 10 o'clock position and then follows it up with firing at the 2 o'clock position. So I believe both of these are firing the way they should be. I guess fingers crossed, we'll go throw it on the tractor and see if it'll actually fire under compression now. All right, back at the scene of the crime. Got the mag back on it. Got it in time. I did have the plugs out. Did have the plugs out of it. Had a nice bright spark. So promising. Carburetor's at home, so we're going to use starting fluid. Let's see if she'll fire. Right here's the exhaust for the pony motor, so I'll be on the other side cranking it, and we'll know pretty quick if anything comes out of there, rat's nest or something. Here we go. That was promising. Whew, might need to adjust the timing a little bit. She just kicked back on me pretty good. Well, she's firing. That's more than she was doing, so I need to adjust the timing and get the carburetor on it, and we'll go from there a little bit safer doing it that way, I suppose. So since I think I got the spark issue figured out, I'm going to dive into the carburetor now and just kind of get some of this stuff loosened up. That's the choke on it. It's a little bit stiff. If you look in the sediment bowl right there, it's full of crap, and I'm assuming probably the floats inside of this are just full of rust. This line's probably full of crap. So I'm going to tear it apart, clean it up, just try to get ahead of the game instead of fighting with fueling issues like I was with spark issues. So I'll get this thing tore apart, put back together, and if there's anything noteworthy, I'll show you. If not, we'll throw it back on the engine and try firing it up off the carburetor. Well, that didn't take long to find something ugly. Took the sediment bowl off there, and that's looking up inside where the fuel comes in and goes back out. Not even really sure what that is. It's kind of looks like a calcium almost, but I don't know why that would be in there. Yeah, if it's there, I'm sure it's through all this too. So there's all the crud that came out of the sediment bowl and out of this line. So like I suspected, the inside of this thing was going to be ugly too, and it didn't disappoint. A lot of rust in there. The gasket around the two halves was missing, so if I would have put fuel to this thing, if any of it would have made it into the float bowl, it would just all poured out right where these two halves met. And it's rusted enough that the floats won't even lift the needle. That needle's stuck in there. So might have to look in and get a rebuild kit for this, or do the best I can with what I got here, but definitely gonna have to get some good cleaning action going on. I got the ultrasonic cleaner going already with some parts in there off of this, so hopefully that thing helps. Be a lifesaver. So this stuff isn't rocket science. I'll get it, just more time. That's a screen inside of there, or at least it's supposed to be. Yeah, yummy. Well, I didn't bother looking for a rebuild kit. I just ended up making my own gasket. Cleaned everything up best I could. I used a new product to me, that Evapo Rust. Got that at the old Hazard Fraught Harbor Freight store. But yeah, she's better than what she was. I scraped around in there a bunch with a screwdriver trying to get all that loose stuff out of there. And that stuff's in there pretty good, whatever it is. Just rust, but she caked in there. But I went through, cleaned everything out. You can see through all the jets, all this stuff. The floats are good. They're not full of liquid, so they should float in theory. I do need a new sediment bowl. This one here was just, pot metal deteriorated. So get a new sediment bowl, or at least an on-off switch for the gas. And I'm gonna throw this thing back together. Fingers crossed it'll work like it should, and the pony motor will be taken care of, and we can move on to the big diesel. Well, I got the carburetor back on it. Got a temporary fuel tank hooked up to it. But I think to better my odds here getting this thing going, this thing does have a starter. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this starter off and get it functioning again, which we got a little handle here, it's stuck. We'll have to get it all freed up and see if the thing even turns over first, I guess, but then we'll go from there. But yeah, instead of using the hand crank in this thing, I'm just going to go and skip right to the starter if that thing will work. So we'll give it a try, and then we'll see how good my carb rebuild was after that. So here's the lever I was talking about. It has to, I think this is how the starter is engaged to the actual pony motor. It's on there's a shaft that goes through there. I don't know if you can see it. But there's a shaft that goes through there, and it looks like this pushes out the other end, and there's some sort of contactor on the starter here that's missing. But I think I can run jumper cable to that to get this thing to spin over. But I do need to get this freed up so I can engage the starter into the pony motor and at least have that to spin this thing over and screw with the timing and all that other crap instead of trying to use that hand crank. And I've busted my fingers from the hand crank on the exhaust air enough times that I'm tired of doing that, and surprised I haven't broken one. So, on to this. All right, find a good ground here. Maybe not. Kind of in my way. Let's go under. How about that? And then corn tack. Nothing. Okay, make sure we got juice. Oh yeah. Okay. I was fiddling with this. I wonder if that's got to be out. Part of the process here. Hold that out. Get this out of the way. Come on. Yeah! Alright, starter turns over, so I need to get that lever, the engagement lever here, freed up. Sweet. So I was looking for something kind of hard to tap on this to try to get that lever to move. I figured I'd look in the old toolbox here since I didn't have anything with me. And this is the toolbox, if I can get it open. This is the toolbox that keeps giving. I was rummaging around in there and came across this thing. And wouldn't you know that this is the doohickey that goes on there, right in now. And that's what makes the contact to get the starter to work. So I'm going to pull all this, at least the starter off. I'll probably have to pull all that off. The starter, this housing and that. And I'll get this put back on. I'll get that thing freed up. And I can be able to start it the way it should be. Now if there's just $1 million in there, if I can find. Well, it started raining on me at the dozer, so I brought this thing back here to the shop to work on it. But as I kind of figured, there was going to be a gear that was on this shaft. And this gear's captured to the shaft with this little flange. It's right there. You move the shaft over, moves the gear over, engages with the starter and the flywheel of the pony motor. You get the motor to spin and off she goes. With this not moving, this isn't going over and engaging with anything, so the starter just freewheels. And I need to clean these 2 bolt holes out so I can get that piece back on there. And then I'll take this handle off, get this thing cleaned up and freed up so it slides back and forth. Throw this thing back on the pony motor. Should get it to go, at least spin the pony motor over and not bust my knuckles on the stupid exhaust anymore. Alright, I got this thing all freed up. It moves now, like it should. And I did get this put on there, and I understand now why this was off of the starter and in the toolbox. This switch is bad, and from what I can tell, see if I can show you here. When that engages, this little piece here makes contact with this contactor here. Well, it's loose, and it's not making good contact. I did have it on there like it should be. Had jumper wires to it, and it would engage, but then it would lose current immediately. So I'm like, okay, it's a ground. So went around, got a good ground, and just kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. Finally, I took that off and pushed that forward, and I can wiggle it, and it's not making good contact with this contact where the power comes in on. So I can get a new one of them for like 12 bucks from Steiner Tractor. So I'm going to order that, get it put on there, and this thing should be good to go. Fingers crossed. Well, let me tell you, I've never bought anything from Steiner Tractor, but I'm a fan. They sent snacks along with parts. Some good old cowtails. Anyway, like I said, I thought this switch was bad, and it was. I got the new one on there, and she works like a dream now. And this thing's violent when it engages, and this sucker spins fast. But I'm putting 12 volts to what I assume is probably a 6-volt starter, so she's a little overclocked. I think that's the term. I don't know. But she's getting more voltage than what she should, and boy, she's spinning. So I need to make a gasket, and I can take this thing back over to the dozer and get it put on, and maybe it'll get that engine spin fast enough, and I can screw with the carburetor and get the thing going so we can get onto the diesel. Contact. I'm starting to run out of daylight, but I was too excited not to come out here and throw this thing back on. So I got everything bolted back on. I got power to it. I got it run over to the Samurai here. I'm going to fire that thing up, let it run while I'm cranking on this, and we're going to see if this thing will fire up. I did make sure it was still working when I put it on here, and here's the exhaust just to show. It's cold. I haven't been trying to, you know, do movie magic on you or something. So we'll see if this thing will fire up together, and yeah, make me extremely happy because we can move on to the next step, which would be the big one. All right, we'll cheat a little bit, put a little bit of starting fluid in here because I'm not sure if the carb's really doing anything or not. So we'll try this first. We're good there. All right, here we go. Probably don't want to put my hand on that. Woo! Might want to take this off before that thing whacks me in the head. All right. I win. Sweet. We'll choke it and see if we got. Let's try some gas here. Oh, come on, keep going. All right, appears the throttle maybe, I don't know, something's not working here. I suppose I could have it flooded. Oh, big motor's engaged. I wonder if that'll help. The fan blade was spinning, so he's cranking everything over. This might get it. Now that that's disengaged, maybe. I'm gonna call that a success. I got a fuel delivery issue or something here. Still got some issues with the carburetor I got to contend with, but yes. So it's picking season. They got the grain dryer going, making a lot of background noise, so I'm gonna take a break on this, on getting it running, and work on getting some of these linkages, mainly the throttle, and then more in particular that little detent there, loosened up. And I'm going to check the fuel tank, see what the fuel inside of it looks like. It's got a nice little conveniently placed drain there, and I made a little extension hose so I can, if there is fuel in that, drain the fuel out of it. And like I said, I want to get the linkages freed up and try to break these injector lines loose on the pump and the injectors themselves on the other side. So I'm going to do that, and hopefully tomorrow they're not drying grain and be a little bit more quiet. Then get back on to getting the pony motor to go like it should be, which I think is just going to be some carb adjustments, and then work on the big diesel. I'm going to try to get this fuel cap off and have a little look in the tank. See. Oh man, that thing's on there. I'm gonna grab a hammer and see if I can destroy the fuel cap. Oh, that sucker's on there. Oh, I don't like that. This thing looks like it's full of fuel, and whatever that is. That's not the most pleasant looking fuel tank there. And hopefully that fluid's just laying in the bottom of the strainer, and that tank's not that full. So that's gonna suck. You know, in reality, it might fire up on that fuel that's in there. If you're curious what it smells like, you ever smelled turpentine? Yeah, that's exactly what it smells like. So I'm just going to do probably the right thing, get ahead of it, and go ahead and just drain what's in there out. Can't hurt. All right. That fits. Probably full of gunk. I got drenched there. There we go. That's a little more EPA friendly method. You know, we want to keep them happy. Alright, so I got 5 gallons out of the tank. I don't think I made a dent in it. So we're going to run on this turpentine that's in the tank. I was always told these old diesels will run on about anything. Well, I guess we're going to find out. I did go through, crack all the injector lines open, and it was promising because the first one I cracked open had pressure behind it, so that tells me that the injection pump's doing what it's supposed to be doing. I did get the throttle loosened up. I can move it back and forth. It's still kind of stiff, but I think that's because of the linkage there underneath the floor is still a little bit rusted. So just need to work it back and forth a little bit more, and it'll keep getting free as we go. And then I got all the line's loosened up on the pump here. So, that being said, I think tomorrow I'll come back here and get the pony motor going where it runs on its own, and I need to find some water to put in this beast, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see smoke coming out of that stack, and this thing will be running and might even possibly move. I don't know. Fingers crossed. So since we last talked, I did a little bit of piddling with the carburetor here and adjusted the jets on it, or the main adjustment here, and got it backed out, and this thing will actually run on its own now. So I'm waiting on the guy that owns all this to show up here, show me where a water hookup is, and get some water in this radiator, and get the pony motor running so it can run for an extended period of time. And we're going to give the old diesel a try. All right.
I'd say she's still cold. It went white. The smoke went white there at the end.
Yeah.
We got about 30 seconds out over there.
That was awesome.
No.
That's the first time it's run in probably, what, 15 years? Maybe?
20.
20 years. The carburetor's still not quite right. I got to hold the choke out on it to get it to stay running, but at least it gets RPM out of it. And it obviously took off and ran, and then we went to go try to start it again, and this here was no bueno. We ended up taking this cover off, and I was kind of worried that we tore up the gearbox in it, but ended up being this pinion here. We figured out kind of how this works. This pinion goes into the transmission, and it engages and disengages in there, and then you also have a clutch on the pony motor, and then you got your high and low in your gearbox. So that's back to working. This is back engaged, so we're going to give this another try and see if we can get it to stay running longer. I think we had a little bit of air in the fuel system on the diesel, so I guess we'll keep cranking it over until she goes, or something gives. All right, try it again. So here's where we're at. So we got a fuel delivery issue. I had this thing running, obviously, you've seen that, making smoke. Playing with the throttle a little bit, and it started to peter out. Tried to start it 2 or 3 more times, and no bueno. So we came down here, popped this plug on the side of the pump here, had some water laying in the bottom of it, nothing real bad. Drained it out. Noticed that nothing, as it was draining, it went empty and nothing was coming in, so we popped this off. That right there off. And we're not getting any fuel from the tank to here, so that line somewhere in there is either crushed or plugged. So I got another drum here. I'm going to drain this tank and try to put a new line on it and make sure everything is good to go as far as getting fuel to the injection pump. And then we'll try this thing again. Got the fuel delivery issue fixed. Ended up cutting the line off and blowing air back into the tank, and whatever was in that line or in the tank, it was clogging the fuel from coming through is gone now. Nice steady stream of fuel. So put a shut-off valve on it, ran a new line up to the injection pump, and I'm going to pull the fuel filters out of this thing since this thing's empty right now, and replace the filters. And once that's all done, get this thing all bled, and hopefully she'll stay running for more than a minute at a time. Here's the fuel filters out of this beast. A little bit different. They call this a sock filter, and 9 of them on this here. But you can still get these and get them through CAT. They're like 60 bucks a piece, or you can find them elsewhere for around 20, 25, somewhere in there. So waiting on these to show up, but the inside of the fuel canister really isn't that ugly. So don't think I need to clean that up very much. So I'm going to get some new gaskets made for the top and bottom of this element, and wait on the filters to show up, and should have this thing ready to go here shortly. Alright, so I've done a little bit of work without you. I got this thing running again, and kind of wish I filmed it, but I got covered in diesel fuel putting the filters back in, and kind of wasn't in the mood. But long story short, I got this thing running. I had the pony motor cranking this thing over for probably a half hour, and couldn't get the injection pump to bleed. So kind of wondered if I had a stuck rack for some reason. I mean, it ran before. I don't know why it was going to stick, but I pulled the cover off. Rack was free, so I'm like, okay, still nothing. Had all the lines off of these. Wasn't even trying to push any diesel fuel out. Well, come to find out, on the back of these pumps, if you can see right here, that is a bleeder. And if you run this engine out of fuel and it gets air into the system, you probably will not get this thing to take off without cracking these bleeders open. It's on every individual pump. As soon as I did that, and this is no lie, as soon as I did that, I had fuel squirting out of there within 30 seconds. Shut them, went over and threw the compression lever up. This thing took off and ran. So a lot of beating my head against the side of this thing for something kind of stupid like that. But with that being said, you might notice there's some air underneath the blade. So it got dark and I wasn't going to film, but I got to playing with the clutch on the blade because I was curious to see if it would raise, and it will. But my new problem is that it won't go down. And I think what the problem there is that the lever inside of here on the shaft here is stuck. So I need to get in there with a pry bar or something and try to get this thing to release the band on the clutch so it drops the blade back down, so I can get this thing to go up and down like it should. Once I do that, then we're going to get into the transmission, which I don't think there's going to be any issue there, but get into getting this thing into gear and getting it drove out of the hole that it's in. What I'm doing is making it spin there. So there we go. Uh-oh. One more quick thing here before I get this thing started and can't hear me talk. I think I've got a pretty good idea what the levers are doing here. This is your hand clutch to engage the clutch between the motor and the transmission. These are your left and right brakes. These are left and right clutches for steering. This here is the throttle. That's your transmission selector. And this is your transmission selector for forward and reverse. And then over here you've got the top one goes back to the winch and selects which winch you want to operate, and then this bottom one here is your in and out on your winch cable. So quick little rundown. Hopefully I'm right on that. I'm just kind of guessing, but I've stared at this thing enough so far. I think I got an idea of what I'm doing. So get the pony motor fired up, get the big motor fired up, and see if we can take a little stroll before it gets too dark. Well, we're basically back where we started. I don't know what's going on with the carb. I could put a new gasket in it, and now it won't run at all. So I am going to take this thing home, go back through it. Must got some dirt or something in one of the jets clogging, because it is not sucking any fuel. You can put your hand right on it, and you know, with a carb, you choke it enough, it'll bring fuel up and get the bottom of your hand wet. Well, this thing ain't even doing that. So something in there is not letting fuel go through. So I'm going to take it home, tear it apart again, and see if something comes out of it, and bring it back out here, throw it back on, and try again another day. I got the carburetor put back on it. Still not 100%, but it's good enough to get the big diesel running. I did come out here yesterday and got it fired up off of the pony motor. So we'll get this thing started and see if we can get these tracks to turn, and maybe get to push some dirt with it. Not sure if that's going to happen here or not. We're running out of good weather. So I don't know. I'd be happy if she just rolls down the lane and back, but I'd really like to get this blade in the dirt and move some earth around. All right, here goes nothing. Amongst the living. I'm gonna give her a quick little walk around, make sure I got stuff all picked up like that, and take her for a maiden voyage. All right, here goes nothing. Blade up. Actually, I need to put it in neutral. Alright, raise the blade up. First, throttle. no steering. No steering. Why do we got no steering? goes forward and backwards, but I don't have any steering. It's either I don't know what I'm doing, which I would chalk a couple dollars up to, or the brakes are stuck or something, or something's not disengaging. So I need to figure that out. But yeah, look at the hole she came out of. She moves again. Awesome. Well, the old girl's back among the living. That's all I could ask for. Definitely got some more work to do with her. Need to get the brakes adjusted on this here so I can get the blade to go down. Obviously steering's an issue, and the pony motor's still not 100% on starting with that carburetor. So I think for the first time ever, I'm going to do a two-part video. I'm going to end this one here. I got it running and moving, so I guess the next video is going to get in the little things fixed on it, like the winch and the carburetor and the steering on it, which steering might be a pretty involved project. All in the effort to get this thing to where I can push some dirt with it, because it only seems right if do all this work and, you know, go out and play with it. So until next time, like I always say, go out and get your hands dirty, and if you like this, make sure you subscribe and check back for the second video. Hopefully I do that sooner than later, but go check out some other stuff, and thanks for watching.